Hi everyone, thanks for coming for a new panel discussion about remote production and Formula E with Ian from Infocus
Yep.
and Rich from Formula E.
Yep. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you so much, guys,
Thank you.
for being here with us. It's gonna be really interesting because we will explain how we use virtual as well. I'm not gonna spoil it, but that's coming. We're gonna say, and also remote production
Yep.
in this specific sport and what are the advantages of it and what happened.
Yep.
Maybe quickly, if you want to introduce yourself, and
Yep.
then we can
Go ahead.
So my name's Ian Brown. I'm the camera supervisor for Formula E on track production. And I've been with Formula E since its first race 10 years ago this week in Beijing.
Oh,
congrats.
very good. I'm Rich Baker. I'm Director of Broadcast and Technology at FIA Formula E. It's not lost on me having such a long title, being a man of few words. And I've been with Formula E since season 4, which in Formula E terms, I think is since the car did not have enough battery power to do a whole race, and they had to change cars halfway through.
Oh, yeah. So long time ago. Not so long, but so why don't we just start watching some pictures of kind of something that happened, which was an accident.
It was an accident. So this is a few years ago in Saudi Arabia. We had a car lost his brakes and went head on, which is this one here. And he just narrowly missed the cameraman on the first block. So this was a catalyst for us, like, we can't put cameramen in dangerous places anymore. And so we had to look at remote heads.
So that's a great example of why it's so dangerous in Formula E and what we should use. I think we have other pictures
so
that
this
explain
is
a
how
bit
far
more.
the blocks went back. So, and those are 4-ton blocks. And the cameraman was mounted. And this is the skid mark that he avoided the cameraman.
Wow, that's...
I think motorsports is inherently dangerous, but what we have to do as the event organizer is ensure that the staff, the people, the audience, the drivers are in as safe as possible. And I think that's what was the real catalyst for us, moving more and more cameras to take the humans out of the line of fire, as it were, or the line of the driver.
Yeah, so we haven't lost the shot. We still have the same shot going forwards. The following year, when we're in the same position, the camera's still there, but the operator isn't. He's 25 meters away.
Talking about that, I think it's a good transition.
Which is exactly this. This is London, and this is the same sort of setup. It's on a head-on camera position, so you can see by the Tech Pro there, it's dangerous if a car hits it. So that camera is operated from about 20 meters away in a little tent.
And what's interesting as well is that you said that's the same shot and the camera operator is the same.
Yeah, so we haven't lost the quality.
Exactly, and then I wanted to show these pictures that you shared of the pan bar, because that's maybe for some people who don't know, that's how it's being operated by the camera operator, so they can do what they're used to. But
so one of the things about the pan bar system is that we do not need to book cameramen that are used to joysticks. I can take any cameraman off the list and say, you're going to operate that camera. It's on a pan bar system.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned something there. It is the same shot that we would have had with a human in there, because trying to convince a director that, no, we need to move that shot 1 meter to the left or the right because of safety, they want the shot. They are only interested in what is on their screen. They are not interested in, let's say, the human bits in front.
Yeah.
So we keep the same shot, the exact same center of the lens that the director wanted and had last year, but remove the human. Why not remove them? But in some cases, move them 5 meters to the left or right out of the crash zone, or in other cases they become completely remote cameras.
Completely remote. So on Formula E, we now currently have 7 remote heads that are Mo-Sys B20s. 3 of them are pan bar systems.
Yes.
And they're in the field. The operators are out there in a little tent.
Yes.
In the shade or the dry, depending on where we are. And the remaining 4 are operated remotely in the TV compound. And there's 2 of us do that, which means we've got 4 heads, 2 each. And the next step for that is it's more sustainable for us. We've only got 2 operators flying around the world rather than 4 for the 4 cameras.
Makes a big difference. And
which is
and you were talking about also the shots you want, but how it matched with the logistic of things. with so many race, like it's a big logistic with shipping that equipment, right?
Yeah, the logistics side of Formula E is massive, almost as big as the sustainability side. So on any given weekend, we are 130 cameras in a fully remote production, which which obviously the move to remote production has meant that we are a lot more sustainable. So we're flying less and less people out to each track, and circa 130 people now who do not travel to track. On the sustainability side of it encompasses everything that we travel around the world. So I think our freight deadline is next week
Next week
for the
sea
coming
freight.
season. Once everything is packed for the season 11, which starts in December in Brazil, we have to carry everything that we could ever need for the entire rest of the season for the whole year. And the one thing that we are really trying is to reduce the freight, less and less freight that travels around the world, more and more remote. And what we found with the Mo-Sys systems, and both the pan bar systems and the PTZ systems, remote controlled systems, is that we can carry less freight and in fact less people who are traveling back and forth, as every flight has a carbon impact. That with this system we can actually have less and do more and expand what we were previously doing with extra people, with less people, with less, let's say, volumetric kit that travels on the planes and travels in our sea freight around the world with us.
Nice.
With 16 events now around the world, it's getting more and more every year.
So it's really the way to go. Maybe what if we watch a video a bit of what it looks like? I think we have a short
we've
clip.
got a little bit of video.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have sound, but
Yeah, so this is in Berlin. Bit of a gap, but as you see, the cars are head on to the camera position, and so at the first lap like this would be potentially quite dangerous if they hit that wall. So, and that one
Nice.
I think that one was operated from porter cabin,
okay.
so that was not a pan bar system. Yeah.
I think the other
Interesting.
interesting point, especially with this camera, is not only are we removing some of the cameramen from the dangerous areas, but it's also letting us put cameras where we traditionally wouldn't have been able to put them before, whether that's on a bridge or in a crash fence or outside of a Formula E track.
Yeah,
Just
so
more viewpoints,
there's some
basically,
other
like more-
viewpoints that we've got of some images further down the list. So traditionally, from the first race ever we did, we had a remote head over the start line, and it's been a bit of a signature shot. Formula One don't do that. We started doing that, and we've had it at every race ever since. And the only way we can achieve that is with a remote head, and that's on the start gantry with the start lights, and it does that pan down underneath.
And it's interesting that you were saying like there's a safety aspect, but there's also the more viewpoints aspect, which makes it like more interesting.
So this year in Portland, Oregon, we had a remote head on a truss right over the pit lane.
Did we have?
I think we've got that one
I
somewhere.
think we have some picture of that. Some is that the one?
No,
I don't
the next one. That's Singapore. There you go. That one there. So that's over pit lane.
You don't want to be.
You can't put a cameraman there,
yeah.
but it's a quite a nice shot where the cars come underneath it. So yeah.
No, it's really interesting. And if we go back to the track, we have a lot of pictures, so we skip for it, which is nice because we can.
So the hoists, these are close to the track. We won't put them there. And
on this one, I wanted to like maybe just put that back because so there is a remote production aspect of things, but there's also the AR graphics, and there was a specific project where you implemented AR graphics with the robotics, and I think you're gonna do more and more, but maybe you can talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So in London on the final race this season 10, we did a test with the Mo-Sys head on a fixed wall. It's taking the data from the pan and the tilt and the lens, which meant that we can implement the AR graphics into advertising positions on the fence. So in a position where we wouldn't have normally put an advertising board.
It's quite interesting. The same situation. Like that's where you physically could not put them, and it's like
where you wouldn't. Well, the position we actually chose in London was a position where we wouldn't put advertising on the fence. because it would have blocked a marshal's post. But in AR, we can actually block the marshal's post and they can still see the fence because it's not actually there. The other thing about the AR graphics is it's less cost for Formula E in terms of we don't have to erect it, we don't have to carry it. So
Yeah, cost is obviously a massive part of why we look into these things. Obviously, it's sort of hand in hand with the sustainability access. Like the less actually printed branding, signage, stickers on fences or covering up buildings that we need to do is obviously a huge amount of plastic or materials that don't need to be recycled. And yeah, we have a very strong recycling policy, but it's better not to have to do it in the start. So things like AR and some of the other things that we do with the mixed reality that is sort of fueling not only additional branding but replacing what would be a traditional branding that would have had to be printed in plastic or some other material that then would be a single use for that particular race. In an ideal scenario, it continues throughout the season, but the nature of some of the racetracks that we have, they are all different and need to be completely rebranded. One of the hilarious things that we have with AR that is the bane of everybody's life is the toilets for the marshals. They are always in the camera shots, and with things
That's
like AR,
interesting.
we can remove that.
we can cover it up.
It's a great use of AR. I mean, it's
Yeah, we can't take the toilets away, but we can cover them over.
Yeah,
with
and that is actually a perfect use case for
Yeah,
AR,
how to
because
cover
not
them.
only can you cover it over, so we don't see the marshalling toilets in the in the camera
nice.
shots,
Yeah.
but we can also rebrand that and sell sponsorship for that. So actually, it's a revenue making exercise.
And being AR, it can be also different, like different 3D assets depending of where you watch it as well. Like you
Yeah,
can-
and this is something where we're going very strong on now is multi-regionalized versions of the same graphics, which is an engineering nightmare, but I think that is why everyone is here for these engineering challenges.
exactly.
Yeah.
But being able to sell essentially the same corner or the same piece of branding multiple times across different regions or even different broadcasters within that region means that you can sort of get your return on investment a lot faster.
Absolutely. And what do you think is like, if we talk about the future and next steps, how do you see that? I mean, of course, you're not gonna disclose everything now, but like, where you heading? Do you think like more and more?
I think we're going to go. We'll probably end up having more remote heads that'll give us less staff on site. And there's a new head out, the new L15, which is a faster pan, which means we can have it closer to the track for whip pans and things like that. That's one of the things that we go, but heavily into the AR graphics. So of the 21 track cameras, full-size heads, that's not including all the mini cams and the onboards, but 21 physical track cameras. I think we were looking at around 7 for AR graphics to start with.
Nice.
Yeah, for us, the whole goal for this coming season is doing more with existing facilities. So being able to add the Mo-Sys part to upgrade existing
upgrade.
cameras and adding Mo-Sys control that we can do the augmented reality and the mixed reality from what we already have is going to be a huge benefit, and we're hoping that we can start to make a revenue that we can fund back into the broadcast product to look at the future of the next parts. The one thing in the future that we're not going to ever say is let the directors or any of the producers know about the spare cameras.
No.
And also the thing is that it's an innovative sport at its core, but I think that's also the philosophy that to try being innovative in everything you do with broadcast with Formula E, I think, right? So it's always like, I think, trying new methods, new technology, and that's what's interesting as well to collaborate together as well, because
Yeah, we do try and innovate as much as possible on the cameras and the graphics. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we've been trialing and trialed in London was utilizing that AR, the camera control straight out of the Mo-Sys products, and tunneling that back to our remote production facility, so that the actual hardware involved in the key and fill of the AR is actually at our production facility in London.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to do extra things and do more things, but if it involves adding more freight that has to travel around the world with us in between every race, then sustainability and financially it doesn't make sense. But the more parts of it, and I think the Mo-Sys system is good for this, where we can actually run the hardware involved of it at the remote production facility that never travels, stays in London. that's what I think is a huge benefit to us, rather than other manufacturers where we would have to have racks and racks of equipment out on the track traveling around with us.
Nice.
And with the pan bar system, currently most of the positions are 20 meters away, 25 meters away.
Okay, 25
But
minutes.
we also demoed in Monaco this year. We had a camera on the start line
Okay.
with a different AR system on it,
Uh-huh.
but so it showed the advertising on the ground on the start line that we cannot paint the road in Monaco.
of course.
We're not allowed to.
Okay.
But we actually tested out the system with the Mo-Sys, where we sent the data back to the TV compound. So the pan bar system, for the first time for us, was nearly a mile away
Wow.
on a pan bar system rather than a joystick,
Mhm.
and it worked flawlessly. We don't know what the delay would be if we put that operator in London. It might be a bit of a nightmare.
This way to
It's a bit of a delay. Yes, there's a bit of a
to work
delay
on
in the
that.
pictures versus pan. So
we should chat about solutions. We have some.
we have to look at the solutions for that one, which is Mo-Sys.
And no, it's really interesting. And also, I think what's interesting is in the fact that you can only always build on it, like in terms of everything you use can be with Unreal. For example, you can always add more and more 3D elements, 3D graphics. But with your current system, it's not like you have to rethink the whole thing, because you could, for example, use different assets that you can just drag and drop in Unreal. That's all the idea of being open and.
Yeah, I think the mentality we have at Formula E is we're very agile, and we like to think we're kind of at the forefront of a lot of these technologies. But especially with graphics, we run a sort of a constant development cycle. Whereas on race one, we will not implement anything new, but we will be off-air testing the graphics for race two. And then in race two, we will be implementing what we learned. And then we will be off-air testing graphics for race three. And we're constantly
usually
evolving.
the best way, right? Like to iterate from doing.
Not only as the technology evolves, but also as the design evolves, or we get new sponsors or things. So there is always graphics evolutions,
So you know, flexibility, agility, and so
especially within the AR and the mixed reality, because Formula E being quite complex, we have a we call it the attack mode, which is real tarmac, then graphics, then the car drives over it. Which I think is more of a mixed reality implementation. And that's actually become quite a key part of the broadcast, as you actually can't see whether a car is activated at attack mode unless you watch it in the broadcast product with the graphics on top.
Yeah, did you wanted to add something?
No.
I think it was really clear. I think we can skip through some images as well, if there were some you wanted to.
Yeah, so
discuss.
that one is like one of our typical start cameras, which we always have on the bridge.
Why does it have a rain cover? It never rains on Formula E events.
It does. The ones on the bridges are the ones we can't get to. So they have to be covered up for every eventuality. Similar to that one.
This shot is quite.
So this is the other reason we use remote heads. That's on a hairpin, and it can stay up all day. Whereas a cameraman needs to come down occasionally for his
Always
lunch
good.
and other things. That camera can stay there indefinitely, and it offers exactly the same shot.
And you can prepare it before as well, like days before, and you have it ready when you.
It's a very good point. I mean, that's sort of why we prefer the Mo-Sys cameras, because unlike the real operators, we don't have to feed them.
Yeah. Only feed 2 out of every 3. Yeah. But yeah, and so that's the system. That was a system in Portland. That system's Portland as well, and we use the extended arm that Mo-Sys developed for us, so we can actually get cameras out over the track to see past the fence.
Yeah, that's a good example of not only have we removed the cameramen from where they might have been in danger, we're actually making the camera position even more dangerous by putting it inside the fence walls.
Pushing it to the limit.
Because you know that there's no risk involved for the operators. Yes, thank you so much. I think it was great to have you here and to show more on what we do behind the scene at Formula E. And we look forward to probably next year show more together with AR graphics and more technology to come. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.